Hi everyone, I'm Alexander Zeitlin. This is the Lockdown Lecture Series for Beginning Cello, adapted from the Alias Music course, Introductions course for cello, and adapted for the classroom. Let's jump into Lesson 1. So I'd like to introduce you guys first to your instrument. So grab my cello here and show you guys around. So generally our cello has three kind of areas: the head, the neck, and the body right here. So the head has a couple elements to it. The swirly part is the scroll. These are our coarse tuners, or pegs as we call them, and this is our peg box. The neck, the part that you need to know about the most, is this thinner black part on top called the fingerboard. It extends all the way down to here. At the top of the fingerboard, you'll notice a raised ridge, and that's called the nut. The strings go along the fingerboard and connect to the bridge. Go over the bridge to the tailpiece where the fine tuners are. And then you've got your end pin, which adjusts your cello's elevation for when you are sitting. On the body of the cello, you have your face. You have your ribs right here and the back. And let's take a look at how we're going to get set up and sit. So the cello is played sitting, although some modern cellists will have shoulder straps where they will sit. For the purposes of the instruction, I have my rolly chair, but you actually really want to sit on a chair without any wheels or arms. So make sure your chair doesn't have wheels or arms. You actually want the elevation of your seat to be high enough that your hips are above your knees, just slightly. So if you look at the line that your hips make from your hips to your knees, it should be pointed down just ever so slightly. To make sure you have a chair with the right height, I'm going to adjust my chair up a little bit for the purpose of the video. All right. So the cello basically rests with three control points. So one is, the first two are kind of between your knees, on the inside of your knees, and that goes along the inside of the ribs here. And then the other one is in the center of your chest. So in other words, I want the inside of my knees to be here. You guys can all see that. And then the edge of the cello just kind of behind the ribs right here sits in the center of my chest. Right now I'm just kind of holding my cello up like this by the ribs. But it feels comfortable, and I can feel like good control of my instrument. When I hold the cello, I want to make sure my seating posture is good, which means that I'm sitting on the front end of my seat, not on the back part, which causes me to slouch. I have tall sitting posture, and I don't think of holding myself up. I think of myself as like a marionette puppet with one string from the top of my head holding me tall. The rest of my body is relaxed. So this helps keep me be tall and also relaxed. And so I set up my cello that way with my good posture. I want my heels of my feet to be just under my knees, and that's essentially where I want it to be set up for with my cello. Now, once I feel, I would highly recommend just picking your cello up and holding it this way, and feel like you have a little bit of a grip on your cello with your knees, and it's resting well, and you're still tall. You don't want to get used to sitting back when the cello's on you. When you get used to what that feels like, just take a look down and extend your end pin. You might have to unscrew it a little bit and just sort of pick a height, and then pull out your end pin here, and try to kind of set it back up again and see if your end pin reaches the floor. For example, mine's still a little short, so I'm going to extend it a little farther. I'm going to unscrew it again, make it a little longer, and set it up one more time. And now it's sitting comfortably on the floor. At that point, you'll probably want to make sure that your pegs right here are just behind your ear. And at this point, I'm just going to take a look, and you can use anything you want to kind of ballpark how long the end pin is. So the more you play, the more you'll know exactly where you want. You might measure it in hand lengths, or kind of where it goes from the tips of your fingers, how far up your arm. But the more you practice, the more you'll know how to set up your cello and how long you really want it to be. So just a small exercise to set up your posture after you have done all that, right? Like everyone to do is to just be able to slightly pivot from one foot to the next and be able to rock to the left and to the right. It's a little bit of a pivot, but just to remember that you're not fixed in your seating, that you have some range of movement. It's small. This is fine. But just to feel like the cello can move naturally with you once you start actually playing. And that's it. That's our posture setup. We'll just rock back and forth 3 times after we set it up as an exercise. So we'll call that our cello setup and exercise. All right, so the next thing we're going to learn is how to create different notes. And we're going to do that with the left hand. And so essentially when I bring the cello and I set everything up, my posture looks good, I bring my hand up, my hand, and by the way, I should mention, the neck of the cello rests on the left side of your hand. So make sure you don't have it set up like this. It's set up on your left side right here. So when I bring my left hand up, you'll notice that I have 4 fingers with which to play, to actually play my notes. It's like my pitches. And my thumb is basically sitting right across from, kind of underneath my fingers, across from my middle finger, okay? So if I end up having my fingers on this low string, my thumb is going to move across with it. If I have it on the high string, it will move across from it right there. Eventually, when you get to more advanced cello playing, you will actually use your thumb as one of your fingers, but we will not do that for quite some time. So for now, your thumb just sits across from your other fingers underneath your middle finger, what we'll learn of as our second finger, in just a little bit. So now, let's take a look at a couple things. Let's take a look at kind of where the fingers belong on our instrument, and we'll take a look at our first exercise. So the neck of the cello is quite long. You could kind of put your fingers in any variety of places, and what you're going to want to do, I'm going to need to draw a diagram here. And it's summer 2020, and I have done so much teaching online, and no matter how much I've done, it is still really hard to draw stuff with the mouse, so please bear with me. Here's our scroll, our peg box, and then we have our fingerboard. This is not to scale. And then we have our body of our instrument right here. So you should know that, here's our bridge, that the bridge will have 4 strings going across. And I'm going to draw this as if you're facing the cello. Take a little bit more room here. And I'll demonstrate on the cello for a moment. So it's going to look different from where you're sitting, but the biggest, lowest string is your C string, and then G, and then D, and then A. So just remember that we will use that shortly. Now what I recommend doing is putting 2 tape markers. I usually just use Scotch tape, and just put a thin line of Scotch tape underneath the strings on top of the fingerboard, approximately here and here on the drawing, but really where it is a whole step up from the nut, and then another whole step and a half step up from the next sticker. I will demonstrate where that is on the cello in just a moment, and this will be the markers for where your first finger and 4th finger go. And if you really want, you can also put a tape here and here for where your 2nd and 3rd finger go. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate how to put those markers on. I recommend either going to your classroom teacher or a private teacher and having them do it. There are a number of ways to do it. There are like pre-cut templates sometimes that you could put the whole, like it's like a long strip with a bunch of markers. You just actually like slide it up and put it on the cello. I like to, keep the markings discreet so that as you become more advanced, you don't have some brightly colored situation going on your cello. But as long as you have markings there, it works. Your first finger marking, if you're on your A string and you put your first finger down on it, it should make this note. So here's A0. Your first finger would go here. Fourth finger would go here. And your third and second finger tapes, if you want to put them, go here and here. So ask your teacher for help. They should be able to put that on. Some cellos will come with it. Many people buy used cellos. Those are very common markings. It's likely you might get them. So let's take a look at our first exercise for the left hand. What you're going to do is you're going to, again, set up your posture correctly. Bring your left hand up to the neck. You are going to take all 4 of your fingers, put them on the stickers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you are going to gently press all 4 of your fingers down so that the string touches the fingerboard. You don't need to press very hard. After it touches the fingerboard, if you press any more, it's kind of wasted energy. So just enough to touch it to the fingerboard. And you want your fingers to be lightly rounded, not flattened or over curled, just lightly rounded. And you want your fingers to touch the string on the pad of your fingers. So not the flat part, not the fingernail, but the rounded pad part. So I have all 4 fingers now on my string. I'm going to take my thumb of my right hand. I'm going to put it anywhere along the right hand edge of the fingerboard. So touch the black wood part. Take my index finger and reach over here. So, and just to remind you, the fingering numbering system starting from your index finger is 1, 2, 3, 4. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep all 4 fingers down and pluck. And if you do that, you can feel the string vibrating, like stopping at your 4th finger. And we've plucked the 4th finger on the A string, and we're just going to call that A4. Then you lift A4 and you pluck A3. Lift A3, pluck A2. Lift A2, pluck A1. Lift A1, pluck A0. So you plucked 4 notes in a row. Again, it sounds like this. Go over to the D string, which is your next string over, and you're going to do the same thing. D4, D3, D2, D1, D0. And you go over to your G string and you do the same thing. G4, G3, G2, G1, G0, and then over to the C string. C4, C3, C2, C1, C0. Now, if you've done that a few times, you feel pretty comfortable with it, you're going to go in reverse. So start from your lowest string, C0. You place your first finger, then pluck it. You place your second finger, then pluck it. Place your third finger, then pluck it. Place your 4th finger, and then pluck it. You're going to go on to the G string, same thing. G0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then D string, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then A string, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And that is what we call our 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 scale. Scale is basically just the notes in order. It's not really a musical scale, it's just all the fingers that you can play. So I will do it with you once. I'll do it for you once. You guys can do it along with me if you like. I'll do it kind of at a medium speed. Every time you practice, though, practice at a speed that you can do it well. If that's slow, that's great. Practice slow, do it well. It will get faster on its own. So here it is, the 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 scale. Continue D4, D3, 2, 1, 0. G4, 3, 2, 1, 0. C4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And then back. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, G0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the assignment for the first lesson, and you're going to do this until you get good with it, but I would recommend taking about a week to do this. It seems very simple, but it's good to learn music, things in music gradually, so that we're not tense when we do them. It's not like an overly difficult task. Be patient, do things right for the right amount of time, and you will be playing really well really soon. So number one, posture exercise, which is basically just your setup and swivel 3 times. Just do it 3 times. And then your 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 scale, and you're also going to do that 3 times. That's it. So that's it for lesson 1. We'll see you all at lesson 2.